for coming here despite the thunder. I'll call it to order. Again, thank you all for being here. The first order is to approve the minutes of January 4th, 2023. Just an FYI, Philip does send them to me beforehand. We do try to catch some particular errors. Are there anything to catch, or can I hear a motion to approve them? Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Thank you. And the second order of business is the approval of the February 1st minutes. Again, are there any additions, corrections, or if not, is there a motion? Okay. Discussion. We're calling the question. Everyone say aye or raise your hand. Okay, now to the meat of the meeting. And thanks for people being here. Do y'all want to introduce yourselves about the Greenway project?
Hey, I'm Will Bullock of Will Bullock Creative. I help with some of the graphic design you're going to see today.
I'm Donna Jacobs. I sat on the team to help with the interpretation.
I'm Kenneth Merolda. I just brainstormed some of this with Donna.
Okay, yeah. And that's great. And are people from the city here as well too? Yeah.
I'm Chase Anderson with Capital Projects.
Well, great. Thanks for being here. And thanks for reminding me that y'all, every time we speak, I think we're supposed to turn on our green light. And when I'm not speaking, I should turn mine off, I guess. So there's a lot to go through. My thought is that when God created copy editors, he did not necessarily think it was a committee that was going to do it. So I'm not trying to seize power, but I thought for the sake of brevity, I would suggest the changes that I went through and made. And then maybe people can vote on that. And again, they're just small stylistic changes. There's some phrasing, some verb tense, and that kind of thing. And I think, and I'm glad that y'all are here. You're here as well too, because I do think every now and then there's a word missing that I'd like to know. So is that okay with y'all if I maybe just start with the first one? Welcome to the West Ashley Greenway. And I think I kept them in order. Or would the city like to present anything about it? Okay.
So we thank you all for coming on the 5th of July. I hope you had a good 4th of July. I'm Chase Anderson with Capital Projects. So this project came to us about a year ago, and it was born out of the Plan West Ashley efforts that went on a couple of years ago. And one of what we heard from the citizens was, let's have some wayfinding signage on the Greenway and Bikeway. And so we got with Will Bullock and we formed a stakeholder committee, of which Donna Jacobs was a member of, council member Appel, Devin Andrews from Charleston Parks Conservancy, Eric Pullman, West Ashley planner, Katie Zimmerman from Charleston Moves, and I think that's all 5 of us. And we went through, and one of the first things we did was develop the logo that you see on the corners and different aspects of the signage. And then we got into sort of designing the sign types. And as it evolved, Ms. Jacobs kept bringing up the opportunities to include some historic interpretive panels onto the trailhead signs, which you can see there outlined in red. And then she was generous enough to come up with all of the content and imagery that we would be reviewing today. So we have been through the design review board, and they've given us the sign off for this. So at this point, we're looking forward to having a conversation with you all. My next step will be going to CWS, Charleston Water Systems, and help figure out where exactly these signs will go along the Greenway, because we have to coordinate with their utilities, make sure we're not blocking anything from their perspective, and then go out for bid and then installation. So if you have any questions in that regard, I'm happy to help. I'm not an expert in West Ashley history, so I'll glad that Donna's here to help us out with any of those questions. It is 6x6 posts on and right now we're getting it priced in two different ways. One is a 3/4 inch MDO, which is like plywood, and then a vinyl printed cover for that sign. And then the second way for pricing is it's called a UHM or UMH, is a high density styrofoam. So it's a little bit of a more expensive product, but should last longer.
And again, if we can make sure we're turning on the green light when we speak, sorry about that.
The logo is signifying the marsh and water along the greenway that you see with the sunshine. And we went through probably 7 or so different logos with the committee, and Will was gracious enough to bear with us as we went through them all. And this was the one that was most liked by most of the members. And we hope it, and we can actually have Will come and talk to the graphics of that. So if you'd like.
And will the signs be front and back or just one directional?
The mile marker will be front and back. Most of the signs are to be, and the road signs will be front and back. The other will be sort of parallel with the trail. So that
Which are the road signs?
the ones with says Coburg Road at the top and the
Yeah,
stop sign. So
okay.
those will be front and back.
But then the others will be parallel?
Yes, ma'am.
And is,
What kind of posts? There are wooden 6x6 pressure treated posts.
and is, in order for the interpretation, do you have to go in one direction?
No, ma'am. The signs closest to the silhouette there are show you like you are here, and with mile markers designated on each sign. And then of course the trailhead signs will be at the major intersections where most people come to get onto the greenway and bikeway. I think we ended up with 9 total trailhead signs. So that bigger one on the right there, spread out through the course of the greenway. How many
Oh.
people,
How many people use this now?
the greenway? That's a great question. I don't know. I bet. Do you have some?
I don't have an absolute number, but on any given day, at any given time, it's heavily used, and especially in certain areas between Wapu Road and South Windermere Shopping Center, because there are schools there, and it's used a lot by school children and families taking their kids to school, people walking to the grocery stores and sort of things. But I don't know that I have an absolute number right now.
Thank you. I just wanted an idea.
I know that when we were out there doing work, I mean, it's pretty constant, steady flow of bikers and walkers. It's rarely are you out there by yourself. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other general questions about the project? One can really see that there's a lot of work that's gone into it. And again, so ready to start paying our attention to the text. So my issues with the text are basically mostly grammatical and just and actually maybe some questioning. So it is Charleston Water Systems, because I see on the first one it says owned by Charleston Water. So it's a technical thing. Is it Charleston Water Systems plural? Okay, yeah. So and again, I don't know how much detail you want to. I didn't. I'll just say I thought instead of linking the economies of Charleston and Savannah, for the first sentence, I said this trail, once a railroad, linked Charleston and Savannah economically starting in 1853. It has evolved into a major infrastructure corridor owned by and is it by the Charleston Water Systems, or should we say just by Charleston Water Systems?
Given the fact that we have a small space, V could probably come
Okay.
out.
And again, I mean, some organizations do have the, you know, in the thing, okay, so, and I have tried to, so it has evolved into a major infrastructure corridor owned by Charleston Water Systems and is also a linear park for the city of Charleston, comma, we can cut a word, connecting neighborhoods, paren, former farmlands, comma, schools and businesses by foot and bicycle. Instead of duplicating community in both sentences, I've suggested this synergy is vital, period. Enjoy the history and nature of this treasured community asset.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with your desire to reduce the redundancy there of community. So that works well for me. I wanted to clarify one historical thing in the second sentence. It is the greenway itself is currently owned by Charleston Water Systems. Okay.
It's owned by the water system and leased, the dirt is leased by the city of Charleston for the park.
So how about something like this? Instead of saying it has evolved into a major infrastructure corridor. I don't think that's a completely accurate statement because it's not currently, it's a greenway. It's not a major infrastructure like a superhighway. It's not an interstate.
Excuse me, it is. They have it runs the sewer system to Hollywood. It runs the underground electrical system from Coburg Road to the underground system on B Street. It runs the water system.
I didn't
runs
get that.
everything.
I didn't get that sense from this sentence at all. So
I assume it transferred from the railroad to the Charleston Water System or
Yeah.
something too, and they actually own it. And I did know that they run their, you know,
Yeah.
they run utilities.
well,
and
that's
stuff for it.
a different animal. There you go.
Well, it's not all underground. It's above ground for Dominion at Coburg all the way to Arlington.
How about
Your electrical system for all of West Ashley.
how about a utility corridor?
Well, that would work. That would work.
Because that infrastructure sounds like railroad to me, and it's no longer a railroad. So it has evolved into a major utility corridor owned by Charleston Water System, comma, now leased by the city of Charleston as a linear park to connect neighborhoods, parens, former farmlands, parens, and et cetera, as written.
So, and it is leased, and we do know that it probably will remain to be leased.
The lease has just been renegotiated and I'm not sure the terms. I think they're 20-year leases.
So, commissioners. Any other suggestions on what I read for other sentences? And then we'll read it back to make sure we have it for thank you, and I'll move. So, oh, that's great. So many things going on above my head and that. So, you want me to read the first sentence again? You can get it, Philip. Okay.
The original text here. Read that.
Yep, so we were suggesting to change the initial sentence to this trail, comma, once a railroad, comma, linked Charleston and Savannah economically, comma, starting in 1853. And again, I think we're getting a sense with a lot less words. And so I may ask you, Nick, to help with the sentence second. It has evolved into a major utility corridor owned by Charleston Water Systems. And what was the rest of your sentence, Nick? Or
Well, I was just rethinking that myself. Excuse me. I was just rethinking that myself. And we might be able to say, based on what you just said for the first sentence, how about now a major utility corridor owned by Charleston Water? Because it's no longer a railroad corridor, it's a utility corridor. And so now a major utility corridor owned by Charleston Water Systems, comma, the city of Charleston leases the property as a linear park to connect neighborhoods, schools, businesses, et cetera. Would you like to propose such a sentence?
now and they're owned by all the systems. And it's now leased by the city of Charleston.
Yeah, something like that. Okay.
How did you want it? Exactly. You said to connect.
Don't forget to take for the community off of the next sentence. Oh, okay. I thought we were there.
If you have to say everything, you have to say it is. So,
Can you suggest a preferable way to do it
so
that?
if you start out making sure you're selling the car or water system, you would have to.
Oh, yeah.
What's that modify?
It is,
It is.
leased by the city of Charleston.
Okay, that's on agreement, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I like that. The Greenway is leased.
You're a fast typist. The Greenway is leased by the city of Charleston as a linear park, and did you say to connect?
Or just connecting.
Connecting
Yeah.
neighborhoods, farmer farmlands, schools and businesses by foot and bicycle. Then the next sentence, I think we said the synergy is vital here. This synergy is vital, period.
Well, at this point, we might ask the authors of this, which of those two communities is most important? This synergy is vital for the community. Enjoy the history and nature of this treasured asset.
Do you like the way that is, y'all? With community asset instead of, because I was thinking maybe it's vital to Charleston, but I think it's maybe just it's vital. It's vital, period, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So, is that okay with the authors? And again, we're being grammarians, and we're also just we're used to trying to save space as much. as
Well, the
possible.
welcome statement was a group effort with a lot of people, so I'm not the true author of
Okay,
that.
and as you can see, editing's a group activity.
No, we were limited, and there were some people that had specific points that needed to be added, and those are essentially still elements of the message.
Well, great. We don't want to leave any information out, but.
Because this was the welcome message, so we're trying to make it as fun as possible.
Right. And what we often do here, Donna, you've been at these meetings too, is we try to make it as least amount of words as possible, because if it gets too wordy, we think people don't read the bottom half of things and stuff like that. So. that's
Totally
one of the
agree.
reasons. Yeah. Okay. So if this signed, if we can do it sign by sign like we normally do, Is there a motion to accept this the way it is presented?
Well, probably forgive me for interrupting real quick. I think we could just do the whole thing unless there was any specific
Okay.
hard disagreements where you guys wanted to
Okay,
vote one way or
That's great.
another.
So are we ready to move to the next one? And this is one general question I have, Donna, and maybe you can answer too. There are credit lines on the photographs, but most of them do not have captions. Do we think that is an issue that the photos don't have captions?
All the photos should have a caption.
They're not in the images that we have and the text that we have.
Do you mean credit rather than captions?
I mean, there are credits and then there are titles, like the next one, and I can show you, it says railroad history. And there's an image of a big interior looking, I don't know, it's the packing shed, but it just says photo credit, South Carolina Historical Society. But we don't have a caption for the image.
On this digital version, I'm looking over Nick's shoulder. There's a caption under railroad history.
Oh, it says duplicate at Folly Road. So is the caption McLeod Mill Road or?
I think she means the entire text below the image.
That's
Is the-
okay. So
That's the way the sign was designed.
okay.
Yeah.
So then there's one issue later on that we don't know. I think actually the next one, we don't know what, okay, well, that's great. I just wanted to make sure that they're, okay. So there are credit lines, but everything, the text is the caption.
And from what I'm seeing over his shoulder, the red is mainly just for us to know where these go.
Right, okay.
May I ask, wouldn't it be less wordy if we said instead of photo credit courtesy South Carolina Historical Society? Is what-
Whatever is supposedly appropriate for the credit, however that verbiage is. I'm used to, I used what I used for Arcadia. So,
Well, I would say, yeah, as long as you're consistent, but I do think courtesy might be, I mean, oftentimes you see that in book or
I think it's probably maybe if there's a protocol for the city, that's probably the best protocol to use. I'm not.
So thanks. And I think this is pretty much, I have a few suggestions for the next one, railroad history. The concept for the Charleston Savannah Railroad began in 1853. And I think it needs a comma and comma in 1902. The rail line was sold to the Atlantic Coastline Railroad. The 9 miles of rail that became the Greenway was known as Crogans. And does Crogans have an apostrophe?
Yes,
Okay, so it should have, so as Crogans Spur.
I can double check that right now.
Okay, right. And serve the truck farms along the way. And I would suggest cutting the word term and then just starting the next sentence. Truck in quotation marks derives from the French term troquet, meaning to barter. And I would suggest grammatically, the final sentence should be truck farming, and it refers instead of referred to. So it's truck farming refers, it's not referring to the vegetables. Sorry for being a grammarian. It's referring to raising vegetables. So truck farming refers to raising vegetables for market.
Yes,
Okay.
and it is Crogans with an apostrophe. His name was
Okay,
Krogan.
Great, it is, okay.
And knowing the crop comes from the sun word croquet, is that germane to our story?
Well, I don't know if it's germane. Pardon?
If it's important to the storyline.
I'm assuming again from our other stuff too, people will suggest, why do you call it truck farming? To be frank, I didn't know it was troquet. I always thought that it was because it was taken by trucks. But again, it's along the railroad line. And so then that even, so, and I think it's a fun fact,
Okay.
So any other suggestions for this particular sign? And do we know what that image is of? Like I said, I'm just curious as what that image, the image of the interior of a shed.
Actually, Will found that in the Historic Society, so I'm not really sure.
So the photographs, are we learning that the photographs don't necessarily have anything to do with the locations?
Not necessarily.
I mean, I have the question on one, but most of the other ones, I do think that there is a correlation between the photograph and the text. And again, that's one reason I was asking about caption because.
Right, and this sign is going to go approximately where Folly Road, Wesley Drive and Folly cross the Greenway.
Right.
And right in there, you're not too far away from Krogan's, which had a large shed like that. Almost all of them had large sheds like that. You can see visually in a later picture of, I can show you of where the railroad is. You can see the building.
Yeah, I mean, there is that building, there is that road called Krogan Spur, isn't
Mhm.
there? Yeah, I mean, right nearby. But again, so my thought is, again, that's why I was asking about captions, you know, if,
Because people aren't going to understand what photographs mean if there's nothing describing them. And why those photos were chosen for that location.
and we don't know per se that it's Krogan Spur shed, but we could just call it
Yeah, just
trucking
farm
shed, or what would you call that?
or typical farm shed or.
Packing sheds,
Packing shed,
loading sheds for railroads.
railroad
Loading sheds.
loading shed.
Yeah.
Courtesy
They had all
South
kinds-
Carolina.
they had all kinds of
Yeah.
words.
I mean, that really ties it to the text if you've got a caption. And again, I assume you can be the same font, you know, as South Carolina Historical Society.
I think that's a great suggestion. This was just the way they were designed and given to me to fill in
Sure, no,
the
no,
paragraph under this.
no. And we are so grateful that you're here because otherwise we would be sitting here spinning our wheels, not knowing, like I said, about the apostrophe and stuff like that. So we appreciate, and like I said, so, you know, we're being more English teachers than we are historians. You're the historian. So we'll call it railroad packing shed.
That sounds.
That sounds good.
Mhm.
Any other questions about this particular issues about this particular sign? Right, Historical Society.
Can you read back your revised?
Sure, and it's pretty much almost exactly the way it is. And I think it's probably right here. I'll double check too. Well, I'll read it. If the concept, let's see. The concept for the Charleston to Savannah Rail, oh, it is right there. The concept for the Charleston Savannah Railroad began in 1853, comma, and I think it should be, and in 1902, comma, the rail line was sold to the Atlantic Coast Line Railroad. The 9 miles of rail that became the Greenway was known as Krogan's 'S spur and serviced the truck farms along the spur. Truck, in quotes, derived from the French term troquet, meaning to barter. Truck farming refers to raising vegetables for market. And the photo caption is railroad packing shed, courtesy South Carolina Historical Society. Okay with everybody?
May I suggest we get rid of the words photo credit and put courtesy South Carolina Historical Society on the same line?
I'm just using that as like you're changing from photo credit to courtesy. That wasn't
Oh,
like,
pardon me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, pardon me.
Stage directions, yep. Okay, so, great. So the next one, again, it was the next one, Donna, that really kind of threw me for the, no, actually the one after that, so hold that. And this one does have a caption sort of embedded in the image itself. And I'll defer to y'all if you think there needs something else for that. It actually says Charleston SC, potato shipping. Yeah, potato shipping and yeah. Should we repeat the same? Should we suggest that caption be repeated under the postcard? It is hard to read. I'm blind with and without glasses. And it actually says Charleston SC potato shipping Grinnin Truck Farm. Okay.
Brannon, Branne.
Sorry, it's mine. Yes, anyway, so John Brannon, Brannen, was considered one of the more successful truck farmers in St. Andrews Parish during the late 1800s. I think we need the and early 1900s. He grew potatoes and strawberries. I think you need to take the comma out. He grew potatoes and strawberries and raised horses. One of the stations along the Atlantic Coast Rail RR service track was named for him. It was located approximately where Campbell Drive crosses the Greenway. Again, very minimal changes, but
Could we strengthen the caption that's embedded in the postcard. And in the text below that say, John Brannon, comma, pictured above, comma.
So do we know he's in the picture or is it his farm?
I don't know that he's in the
Right.
picture.
Okay.
But again, if, I think, or if we want to just, so is the thought we're going to repeat the caption that's on the postcard? That's a great postcard.
I could pass the postcard around. I brought that because I thought it's so precious. But it's not, it's on the back of the postcard. It does not signify that he's in one of the
Right.
picture.
Although you're wearing your derby hat while you're packing things. That's, I guess they knew the camera was going to show up, huh?
That postcard came to me courtesy of Ernestine Fellers.
Ernestine Fellers, thank goodness, who worked for the city of Charleston.
She knew Joe Harrison.
She's amazing. But anyway, so I digress. Any more thoughts about the text?
I have a couple of ideas. If you're worried about the readability of the caption that's printed on the postcard, the text could say, John Brannon's truck farm, comma, pictured above, comma, was considered one of the more successful farms in St. Andrews Parish during the late 1800s and early 1900s. He grew blah, blah, blah.
Would that work for you, Don?
I think that's fine. However you want to distribute it.
So I think you got it. Any other discussion?
Are we going to credit Ernestine Fellers for a
Yes,
postcard?
yes.
Wouldn't we like to put that on here while we're on this one?
It just somehow didn't get onto that
Right.
copy for y'all.
And it's FELL.
LERS.
And
ERNESTINEFELLERS.
Would you want to say image courtesy of Ernestine Fellers?
Well, it's going to be under the image,
Okay,
and again, I think as long as and I think there'll be
nitpicking.
continuity for every image. So I will wait for y'all to signal. Is it okay to go on to the next one?
Yes.
This was the image that I was confused a little bit about, Donna, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to speak into the microphone and not block the screen at the same time. So is this a photograph of, does it contain Voorhees Plantation in this image?
Well, it's not all of Voorhees.
Right.
It's not all of, but when they bought the land, it was part of Voorhees.
Okay,
Which I
so
heard.
what would the best caption to be? So
That would be a difficult photograph to caption.
yeah, and again, but I did not understand how that photograph related to the text, and I was assuming, so maybe we can do it in there. But again, I guess if we want to be consistent, could we just say part of Voorhees Plantation, aerial view of part of Voorhees Plantation?
That would work.
Because again, that was the one that, again, to repeat, I didn't have a relationship with, so
So did Harrison sell the properties when it transitioned to a neighborhood?
Yes.
so Joseph M. Harrison acquired and is it the Voorhees Plantation, do you think, or we just say Voorhees Plantation? Right, I would assume it's like Middleton Plantation, not the Middleton. So Joseph M. Harrison acquired Voorhees Plantation in 1917. And I would suggest, comma, having moved to Charleston from Virginia in the early 1900s.
That's good.
By the peak of his career, and I would suggest taking it out of subjunctive, by the peak of his career, he owned 1,000 acres of cultivated land. the land of Voorhees transitioned from farming to, and I would say the residential neighborhood of Harrison Acres
That's cool.
in the 1960s. Notice, and I would say probably do you think it's the Magnolia Drive-In? Notice Magnolia Drive-In Theater Center in the photograph that was located along Savannah Highway.
That's a good question about Magnolia. I'm not sure. We did that just so people would have a reference.
Yeah, and
just picked
some
that.
people remember Magnolia Drive-In.
And that's the aerial where you can see where the railroad is really and where packing sheds are, right in the center of the photograph.
Peg?
When I write, I always put plantation with a small p. And I don't know what other people do, but usually plantations were just, that was an adjective, not the name of. You don't say Middleton Plantation or Middleton Place Plantation or Drayton Hall Plantation with a P, capital P. And
And
I'm wondering about Voorhees.
We have the historian here.
Good, thank you.
I was actually going to look on the document. Hold up. Actually, in this deed, they list the Voorhees people by name and not by plantation. I've seen it though in documents with a capital P. I've seen Voorhees spelled several different ways too. So this was as close as I could get. Yeah. Several of the ones we've seen, like Weimar Plantation, spells with a capital P too, when I've seen it.
Well, by 1917, we're talking about post-emancipation anyway, so plantation is more of a commercial
It's
concept,
a real estate artifact.
right?
And maybe I would suggest, Philip, and if y'all would agree to, in the second line, instead of the land of Voorhees, maybe saying the Voorhees land. Transition.
I like that. Harlan, pardon me, I can't remember if you mentioned in your version of the very first sentence, did you take out the definite article, the Voorhees?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So he acquired Voorhees plant, right, we took out the. And it's out there as well too. Okay. So I'll read what the screen says. Joseph M. Harrison acquired Voorhees Plantation in 1917, having moved to Charleston from Virginia in the early 1900s. By the peak of his career, he owned 1,000 acres of cultivated land. The Voorhees land transitioned from farming to the residential neighborhood of Harrison Acres in the 1960s. Notice the Magnolia Drive-In Theater Center in the photograph that was located along Savannah Highway. Caption, aerial view of part of Voorhees Plantation.
Yeah, I have a document here that even spells Voorhees completely different, but the word plantation is spelled with a capital P.
So again, I think if we've got the primary documents saying P.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's a, like Peg said, it's a real estate
Right.
artifact.
Right.
So rather than repeating the word land in there, cultivated land, period. The Voorhees property, you said land a moment ago, but how about Voorhees property? So you're not repeating the word land.
Oh, so after acres of cultivated land, right? The Voorhees property transition, yeah.
And in the last sentence, we could avoid the definite article question and just say Magnolia Drive-In Theater, center of the photograph above, was located along Savannah Highway.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's much better.
Yeah, I like that better.
So Joseph M. Harrison acquired Voorhees Plantation in 1917, having moved to Charleston from Virginia in the early 1900s. By the peak of his career, he owned 1,000 acres of cultivated land. The Voorhees property transitioned from farming to the residential neighborhood of Harrison Acres in the 1960s. Magnolia Drive-In Theater, center in the photograph in paren, was located along Savannah Highway.
One last shortening, do we actually need after Virginia in the early 1900s when he bought the plantation in 1970? What's more earlier than that?
I agree. I think we could leave it out.
Donna, do you have a strong feeling?
No, I just was taking that from his autobiography in the
Right.
history of South Carolina.
Where'd you find that?
It's, I think it's Snowden's books.
Oh, God,
Yeah.
right, yeah, sorry. I think
They
we're-
have several of these people written up.
Right.
already.
So are people pleased with what's on the screen? Can we move to the next? Okay, well, again, I mean, I don't mind reading it, but again, I'm trying not to block your way and try to be on the microphone at the same time, so that's the, so. And do we have a caption for this?
Well, I think the way, since.
Oh,
since-
it does talk about the caption. right, in
Exactly.
this
I
one.
was going to suggest that
Right,
because this was formatted differently than what y'all are suggesting
Right,
now,
right.
but the photograph,
Right.
that's exactly what I say.
So,
from what
right.
That says.
so I suggested for less words, the photograph's caption on its back reads, artistic loading, vegetables for Eastern market from E.W. King, Charleston, SC, in quotes. And I think we have to not capitalize beets. So it's cabbage, comma, lowercase beets, comma, lowercase sugar, lowercase beets, lowercase turnips, and carrots, lowercase, were just a few of the vegetables, plural, grown in St. Andrews Parish, comma, destined for markets by rail. And then I'd say in 1879, however, strawberries were considered the most profitable crop. Truck farming provided an economic engine for the area, and the truck farming provided an economic engine for the area in the post-Civil War era, I would say into the 20th century. Because again, we always assume people are going to see a truck and they're going to see a caption saying post-Civil War. They're going to think that's a post-Civil War truck, and it's obviously an early 20th century truck. So.
And your suggestion was to move that quote up directly under the.
No, not necessarily, but basically just saying, but I mean, I will defer to y'all if you think we need it. It says, what I was saying, the photograph's caption on its back reads, artistic loading, vegetables for Eastern markets, E.W. King. So do y'all think it needs the caption again if the first line repeats what the caption is on the back?
But you need the courtesy. Right?
Right, we would change it to courtesy, South Carolina Historical Society.
Shouldn't it say the photograph's caption on its back?
How about,
That's what I said.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just telling
Okay.
Philip that because he's
Okay.
typing. I'm seeing the typing.
Sorry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it should, and you can get rid of that. So the photograph's caption on the back reads, artistic loading, vegetables for Eastern, right. Cabbage, beets, sugar beets, turnips, and carrots were just a few of the vegetables. And I think we can just do vegetables plural instead of vegetable types,
I agree.
grown in St. Andrews Parish, destined for market by rail. In 1879, however, strawberries were considered the most profitable crop. Truck farming, do we need a capital F? I don't
No.
think so. In farming, truck farming provided an economic engine for the area in the post-Civil War era into the 20th century. people have okay with that or what changes?
The very first sentence, might it be preferable to say the back of the photograph above includes a caption that reads,
Or you could say the photograph above is captioned on its back.
that. I
The
like that.
photograph, comma, and I don't think we need did we just say the photograph above? Do you need paren?
Just the caption on the back of the photograph reads.
Okay, that works too.
Mhm.
But again, sorry, Philip, the thing is, if you start with the photograph, people instantly see that the image and the first thing that they're going to read is the photograph, so it will tie it together. So I like your thought, Nick, on that, that photograph is the first word in the sentence.
So are there no dates for any of these photographs?
Well, that date came from was given to me by Eric Pullman. He found it in the archive,
say
and
the
I don't
above
think it was dated because I asked it.
Which
The date for the photograph of
And
King,
I would say captioned on the back.
it was an undated photograph, he said.
Or-
We know approximately when King
comma,
was
Right.
farming there.
We just don't know our trucks.
So the above photograph captioned on the back reads artistic loading. I guess that's not grammatically correct. Let's see. We could say the above photograph is captioned on the back as. Again,
What are you trying to avoid again?
what we're trying to say, we're trying to put photograph initially in the first sentence in the word, so people know that there's a link between the image above and the photograph.
So what's wrong with a caption on the back of the photograph reads?
So the above,
I don't think you have to say.
right, so, or maybe it's the above photograph captioned on its back read. But again, you're basically saying the photograph reads.
How about this photograph is captioned
Got it.
and then go straight to the quote? Artistic loading.
Yeah, so is it necessary to write on say that's on the back?
Maybe not.
Colon there.
So I think we say, if you say, so this photograph is captioned.
Or this undated photograph is captioned on the back. Artistic loading.
That sounds good. Do we need a comma after back? No, remember, is it like,
Sure.
yeah, I think. So this undated photograph is captioned on the back, artistic loading, vegetables for Eastern markets from E.W. King, Charleston, SC. Cabbage, beets, sugar beets, turnips, and carrots were just a few of the vegetables grown in St. Andrews Parish, destined for markets by rail. In 1879, however, strawberries were considered the most profitable crop. Truck farming provided an economic engine for the area in the post-Civil War era into the 20th century.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need though to repeat that all of these are undated photographs, or is it most important in this particular one? Because it seems like they're wrong.
Point.
Sure.
I don't-
Okay.
Okay, next one. So DuPont Crossing, do we want to do a caption first?
Well, what are you looking at?
So is it like a plat with inset of, is this the packing shed or is this a loading
That's
shed?
the Charleston County Vegetable Market.
And what are,
And couldn't you,
is this a street sign or?
Or-
plaque?
This is
That's a
a plat showing literally where the railroad crossed the highway in what was known as DuPont Crossing in West Ashley. The larger area where the Seaboard Airline crossed the Atlantic coastline was called DuPont Crossing. And so therefore, because there was a DuPont shed there, and therefore the whole area around Wapu Road and Savannah Highway became known as DuPont Crossing. So people said, oh, you want to go to DuPont Crossing? People generally knew where you were going. And Wapu Road was more or less considered the center of St. Andrews Parish. That's why they located the high school there when they moved the school formally onto Wapu Road. It was considered the geographic center of the parish.
Well, then it almost seems like you might want to flip-flop those two sentences and talk about the fact that, you know, DuPont was the hub, and then describe what defined it based on the plat, and actually mention that this is a plat, because people won't understand what it is.
Or maybe we could caption underneath it a plat of DuPont
Right. I
Crossing.
mean, I would argue, Angela, that the image is always the most important thing. People focus on the image, you know, and so then the largest image is the plat where all the geographic thing where all the things come together. So if you could caption it plat with, and so it, and with, and, plat, inset, Charleston Market Building, Charleston County Market Building.
But you have to explain why the plat and the shed are important illustrations for this caption, for this paragraph. Because you're not showing a hub of activity, you're showing a plat and a shed.
So to me, it reads, the title of this is DuPont Crossing, and we're explaining why it's called DuPont Crossing. And
Right.
it's called DuPont Crossing because this convergence of all of these spaces, which are basically shown, I guess, in the plat, which is the larger image.
And I think that if we move the packing shed, which was a late addition to do that, to the blank space on the right of that image, the hashed blue building that it's partially covered, I think it says the market building underneath there. I think that would help. I didn't see this inset till just now.
That's great because you've got all this blank space on the right. It's not covered.
I think that might help. As best I remember about that plat, I think it says.
So
market building.
this photograph is the image of that platted long, dark structure.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Mhm.
oh, that would be great.
Mhm.
And if that actually says that,
So maybe it should run during the truck farming era. DuPont Crossing was a hub of activity as trains were loaded for northern markets with produce from Charleston County Market Building, located along the Seaboard Airline Railroad. And then it could be repeated. DuPont Crossing is where, or you can repeat the fact that this is the plat, if you want to. DuPont Crossing is located where Savannah Highway, Wapu, the Seaboard, etc. converge.
so what are your thoughts, Donna? Do you think, would that work?
I sounded like it gave the same flavor to the,
So then, and that building is no longer standing.
unfortunately, it's been
Right.
demolished. That's right.
So if, like, let's just read it out loud and maybe not type, Philip, to see, put the sense in there as to what Angela was saying. So during the truck, we would say DuPont Crossing. During the truck farming era, DuPont Crossing was a hub of activity as trains were loaded for northern, and I don't know if that's out capitalized or not, I think it is, for northern markets with produce from the Charleston County Market Building, and I would say once located along the Seaboard Airline Railroad, to try to show that it's no longer standing.
That's a good idea.
And then you could say, and then you would say, and you can say, it was where Savannah Highway, Wapu Road, and Seabrook Airline Railroad and the Atlantic Cross Line Railroad converged.
Well, even today we call it DuPont Crossing.
Right.
It's not, there's no was in there.
Right.
It still is DuPont Crossing.
Okay, so it says was here, so should we change it to is? And again, we're not necessarily changing it. Has always been known,
Yeah, it's still known for people
Yeah.
as DuPont Crossing. That's I guess tense is kind of important here.
right? So again, but the original tense is was. But then we'd have to figure out, and was considered the center of St. Andrews Parish, which is not anymore, correct?
It's still technically geographically the center of the parish.
So if we flip the sentences, we would say during the truck farming era, it was anyways, no, during the truck farming era, DuPont Crossing was a hub of activity, et cetera, as trains were loaded for northern markets with produce from Charleston County Market Building, once located along the Seabourn Airline Railroad. The area where Savannah Highway, Wapoo Road, and the Seabrook Airline Railroad and the Atlantic Coastline Railroad converged is known as DuPont Crossing, and is the center and is considered the center of St. Andrews Parish. Would that work?
That would work, although we're going to get into a little bit of a thought process here because we're no longer St. Andrews Parish.
Right.
We're the city of Charleston for the majority of it.
Right.
So in that respect, it was considered the center of the parish
Right.
because the parish no longer exists. But technically, it's still the center of the area.
Right.
So I think if we're going to refer to it as the parish, I think we should use the past tense.
Past tense. And was considered. And was considered the center of St. Andrews Parish. Are people happy with that? Need me to read it again? Can y'all see it? So during the truck farming era, DuPont Crossing was a hub of activity as trains were loaded for northern, and I think northern has to be capitalized, for northern markets with produce from the Charleston County Market Building, once located along the Seaboard Airline Railroad, RR. The area where Savannah Highway, Wapoo Road, the Seaboard Airline Railroad, and the Atlantic Coast Railroad, RR, converged is known as DuPont Crossing and was considered the center of St. Andrews, and to the apostrophe S. St.
Yes.
Andrews Parish.
And then I believe Chase had a question or
Okay.
comment.
Sorry, Donna, did you say the building was the Charleston County Vegetable Market or the market
Yes.
building?
But they also called it the Charleston County Market. But I think here we might want to put vegetable on it. You'll see it in the next picture.
So should we call it the vegetable market?
I think on the next picture, you see the sign that says Charleston County.
It says market.
I think it just.
It does say
It
just
just
Charleston
said
County
market. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I think it was known as the vegetable market too.
And then we're gonna move the image to the right.
Yeah,
the
I think,
insert.
yeah, we can do that. That insert. Mhm.
Harlan, it bothers me that in that paragraph, we're explaining twice that it's called DuPont Crossing in the first sentence and the last. So
So you want
in
to
the rearranged format, we were explaining what DuPont Crossing is in the first sentence. So in the second half, perhaps it could say the area where Savannah Highway, Wapoo Road, and Seaboard Airline Railroad and the Atlantic Coastline Railroad converged, comma, long considered the center of St. Andrews Parish, comma, is still known as DuPont Crossing, period.
Or since the caption is in all caps, DuPont Crossing, you could start during the truck farming area. This was a hub of activity. You could take DuPont Crossing out of the first sentence.
So is the sign actually going to be placed at the crossing?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, the first, it's all caps. The first thing you read is DuPont Crossing. And instead of reading in the next sentence, DuPont Crossing, it might be more better, as we say. And again, I'm just throwing it out there, saying this was a hub of activity. Right, Donna?
No, I was going to answer his question when you finished. That sign is going to be placed where the Greenway crosses Wapu Road, which is part of the greater area known as DuPont Crossing. The physical crossing is a little bit further down south. The physical crossing.
So Donna, would you feel comfortable if the big caption in DuPont Crossing in bold letters or capital letters, and then the first sentence, like Harlan said, this area was once a hub of activity?
During the truck farming era, this was a hub of activity.
Do you like that?
Yeah.
Okay, she likes it, so I'm happy with that too.
I mean, I think all these are good suggestions and edits, you know.
DuPont is DU capital PONT. Isn't it? That's how the DuPont spell
Well,
it.
that's how the family spells it, but this place name may or may
I
not be
think-
spelled that way.
Well, I'm asking.
No, not here. DuPont's not spelled like that. Mhm.
But it's all,
But it's all caps, so
so
you
you
don't
can't
know.
tell.
Locally, I think it's spelled like this. But once again, it's like Voorhees. You see it spelled several different ways, depending on what you're looking at.
And have we come up with a caption?
I thought the caption was the
Was
plat
like
of the plat with the
semicolon,
inset.
Inset Charleston Market or something like that.
Mhm.
Are you saying the inset's going away?
No, the inset's moving to the right
Oh, I see. Okay.
under John
Right.
Stratton.
Okay, so we're going to keep the inset. It's just moving. All right, gotcha.
We're just going to shift it to the right in the blank space and take it off where the other words are.
So the caption could say plat of DuPont Crossing with inset of Charleston Market, Charleston County Market
Mhm.
Building.
Right, and I think we've got another inset coming up with Google's, so.
And the photo credit there is Ina Boodle.
So this is from so courtesy of Ina Boodle.
It's actually her cousins in the picture.
How's that spelled?
INA BOOTLE.
BOTLE.
OTLE. And if I may, I'm very excited that we're using their photographs because the Boodle family was extremely prominent in a period of time. And there's absolutely nothing that reminds anybody historically of that prominence of that family.
Yeah, you used to be able to see that sign, Boodle's Gas. and stuff.
Guest home and you'll
So,
see.
Our
and-
pe-
And to the question about the hub of activity, this second picture where the students are walking down, I think they're going to be on the same sign together.
Are
And
they
I
gonna be on the
chose,
same sign together.
yeah, and I chose that picture because you can physically see the railroad on the road.
Oh, cool. So we're prepared to move to the next text. Okay, so the area, and I think I found little with this one. The area around this intersection was considered the center of St. Andrew's Parish. I don't know if we wanted to put white students instead of just students, because this was a segregated high school and we don't have images of Black people in this image, you know. So that would be my thought. White students from St. Andrew's Parish High School walked to the corner of Wapu Road and Savannah Highway for sodas and snacks from Boodles in the early 1940s. This was a privilege usually afforded to seniors. Notice the railroad tracks crossing the road in the Charleston County Market building, and I don't think you need located. You could just say in the background. And I don't know if you want to, you know, Nick, beforehand, you took out the notice, you know, basically say, if you want to do that. And that was the only thought. And do we need to say, since this is the first time someone might come across Boodles, the next one describes what Boodles is, I think. So do we want to say Boodles Grocery or something like that? Because again, if this is the first you come across it, people might not know what Boodles is. And
That's good. That building was called several things. I think I put Boodles Grocery in the second one. Or I mean, yeah, Boodles Groceries.
and I've said grocery would be capitalized. And And for the caption, would it be something like St. Andrews students at so are they at Wapu Road?
That's Wapit Road they're walking on. Very close to the intersection of
Right.
Savannah Highway.
So would the caption be St. Andrews High School students on Wapu Road, or?
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's redundant, but again, if people just want to read the captions.
It's St. Andrews Parish High School,
Pardon?
St. Andrews Parish High School. And interesting enough, they called it high school, even though during this time it served all grades.
Really?
Mhm. It wasn't just a high school then, but they called it high school.
Do you want to put the Boodles courtesy again? For the picture?
Yeah, it'll say courtesy instead of photo credit, I guess. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this text? Will I read it? Got it. Okay. The area around this intersection was considered the center of St. Andrews Parish. White students from St. Andrews Parish High School walked to the corner of Wapu Road and Savannah Highway for sodas and snack from Boodle's Grocery in the early 1940s. This was a privilege usually afforded to seniors. Notice the railroad tracks crossing the road and the Charleston County Market Building in the background. Okay, to go ahead for the next. And we've got the caption, St. Andrews Parish High School students on Wapu Road. The next one is welcome to the West Ashley Bikeway. What once served to, I don't think I've got anything. What once served to link the truck farmers of St. Andrews Parish to northern, and here northern is capitalized, to northern markets by the Seaboard Airline Railroad, beginning in 1916, has evolved into a linear park for the city of Charleston. And I don't know if you want dash or just comma or not any, has evolved into a linear park for the city of Charleston, connecting neighborhoods, former farmland, schools, and businesses by foot and bicycle. Enjoy the history and nature of this treasured community asset. And beforehand, Nick, I think you had said, instead of has evolved, is now, I think you said we could go back to that original language, is now a linear park instead of has evolved.
Mhm. This rail bed is owned by the city of Charleston. It's different. And
Okay.
so it's kind of, the trailhead starts for the bikeway on Wapu Road also. So you're going to see a little bit of duplication only because some people are only on the bikeway right now. And some people are only on the greenway. We hope to have it all nicely connected soon.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just thought for consistency's sake, using the same kind of.
No, I understand that, but I wanted to explain why there was some duplication of wording.
Yeah. Oh, shall I read it? What once served to link the truck farmers of St. Andrews Parish to northern markets by the Seaboard Airline Railroad. And beforehand, did we do railroad as 2 words? It was always one.
We've abbreviated it previously only
Right.
because we were
Right.
short of space. And I've always wondered if we should be consistent. Other places we were just short of
Well,
space.
I think this is fine. You've got a lot of space on this one because I'm assuming, well, you don't have an image on this. I'm not sure how large the sign is for this one.
This one, well, the welcome sign sits above the 2 interpretive images on that particular sign.
So sorry, what once served the truck farmers of St. Andrews Parish, better without my glasses, what once served to link the truck farmers of St. Andrews Parish to northern markets by the Seaboard Airline Railroad beginning in 1916 is now a linear park for the city of Charleston, connecting neighborhoods, former farmlands, schools, and businesses by foot and bicycle. Enjoy the history and nature of this treasured community asset. People okay?
I don't like the word nature by itself there.
Natural beauty?
Yes.
I'm gonna change that in the other one. That sounds
Right,
good. Yeah.
and the natural beauty.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. Mhm.
Yeah.
Further along, we have mentioned area. Is that incorporated the towns? Should we also have the towns for that?
Oh, we'll get there. What? Yeah. And which is no more, so. Oh. Did the railroad hit Maryville?
Yes. That's where Higgins Pier is today. We're
That's
across.
what it is?
That's where Higgins Pier is today. We're across the Ashen
Oh,
River.
got it, got it.
Mhm, the park down there
Right.
is.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Were the passengers couldn't use it.
They did, but it wasn't a passenger train. It was principally a cargo train. But we did use it in 1955 when the Fort Fetterman hit the Ashley Bridge.
Pardon?
There were stops along the way, mainly for truck farming. Principally stopping only at that market.
So, if we put Maryville in there, then people wouldn't understand it because they'd have to see the sign for Maryville.
No,
And-
I was just saying.
Right.
Town.
Right, but it wouldn't be
But it
towns.
makes sense.
I
Right.
don't think it makes sense because we're talking about, it is now a linear park that connects neighborhoods. The town doesn't exist anymore, so.
Okay, now we're on to,
You need more space for that.
yeah, and that's always the challenge,
Yeah.
And again, trying to assume that people know nothing, but trying to be as informative as you can. So Wapu Road at DuPont Crossing. And I would suggest, here, Luther and Grace Boodle ran a grocery store, gas station, and lunchroom from the late 1930s to the mid 1940s. Their building was a prominent fixture at the corner of Wapu Road and Savannah Highway in the area known as Pleasant Grove. Do you think we need also? Luther Boodle served as the chief of St. Andrews Parish Fire Department from 1954 to 1956. Inset, Grace Boodle serves a customer at, I think we just said Grace Boodle serves a customer at the grocery. Since I think we've named it,
Yeah.
and I guess we haven't named it before, at Boodle's Grocery. So I suggested putting here in the first sentence, cutting out, do you need the word also? Also known as Pleasant Grove? Could we just say known as Pleasant Grove?
Well, because that greater area is also known as DuPont Crossing, but that
Okay.
little piece of property where they are is called Pleasant Grove.
Okay, so we can keep the also, but we would change at to as. That's just a typo, I guess. And do y'all think we need here in the first sentence? Walker Road at DuPont Crossing. Here, Luther and Grace Boodle ran a grocery store. Or is it okay just to start with Luther and Grace Boodle ran a grocery store, gas station, and lunchroom?
I prefer a to the grocery store.
Right, we do have, yeah.
It's not on there.
Right.
What's the change?
So instead of the, changing it to a grocery store.
If you wanted to add the word the, it could go, or excuse me, if you wanted to add the word here, it could go after lunchroom.
Luther and Grace Boodle ran a grocery store, gas station, and lunchroom here from the late 1930s to the mid 1940s. And if you needed to save space, you could say the building instead of their building. But their building was a prominent fixture at the corner of Wapu Road and Savannah Highway in the, in the area. Or you could say, we say in an area also known as Pleasant Grove.
Yeah, you could say Savannah Highway, comma. And
An
area,
area also known as Pleasant Grove,
right,
and that would take a few words out of it to compensate for the here that we've added. Luther Boodle served as chief. Do we need the?
no,
I think Luther Boodle served as chief of St. Andrews, and is it of the St. Andrews Parish Fire Department? I think that requires an article. Luther Boodle served as chief of this,
I don't think you need.
okay, that's fine. I just get addled. I'm fine. Luther Boodle served as chief of St. Andrews Parish Fire Department from 1954. And if we wanted, you could take out the, the 19, you could say from 1954-56. Inset, Grace Boodle serves a customer at Boodle's Grocery. And would the caption just be Boodle's Grocery?
That works for me.
Yes.
And grocery would be capitalized as well too,
Yes.
proper name. Any more thoughts about this text? And I'll read it again. Luther and Grace Boodle ran a grocery store, gas station, and lunchroom here from the late 1930s to the mid 1940s. Their building was a prominent fixture at the corner of Wahoo Road and Savannah Highway, an area also known as Pleasant Grove. Luther Boodle served as the chief of St. Andrews. I don't think we need the V. Luther Boodle served as chief of St. Andrews Parish Fire Department from 1954-56. Grace Boodle serves a customer. Inset, Grace Boodle serves a customer at Boodle's Grocery. Caption, Boodle's Grocery. Courtesy of Ina Boodle. Courtesy Ina Boodle.
One small suggestion, after fire department, can we put a comma and then the dates and omit the word from?
Oh, got it. Anybody else? Can we move to the next one?
Yes.
It is.
Can y'all
Oh,
bump it
and
up?
we agree on that.
And
We've enhanced that as best we can to the reason that was chosen is it's one of the few that we have that shows that railroad crossing the river right there. And it's kind of the important part of the photograph.
no, I couldn't even determine what it was. Sorry.
Annotation might help that one because I had some people really work on the photograph I have.
So what would the caption be?
Seaboard Airline Railroad crosses the Ashley River. That would give a perspective.
Right, so
No, it's from an airplane.
it's an aerial photograph.
Yes, that's a good, yeah.
Maybe you could put an arrow
Right, or
Where
just
it
say
is.
to the right,
because I didn't know what we were looking at till you finally mentioned it.
Yeah.
And then I looked again.
I think annotation of the photograph will help.
or if we say, to the right, what, Seaboard Airline Railroad, what, trestle, do we want to call it, or just crossing the act,
It was a bridge, actually.
pardon?
It was a bridge, a train bridge.
Okay,
Well, why don't you say that?
right,
Railroad train bridge.
right, Seaboard Airline Railroad Train Bridge, right, parenthesis, right, try to say, to write a photograph crossing the Ashley River to draw people's eyes that it is to the right if it is a bad image.
An airline is 2 words.
Says it's supposed to be 2 words in the, everywhere else we've used it.
Yes, so it'd be my era. Mhm.
So I think we might have used it before, Philip, in other ones.
I could just replace that real
Right,
quick,
right,
sure.
we need to do replaced, right? So,
And is that line capitalized with L?
Let me double check that.
meanwhile, I'll read it.
Meanwhile, did the cabbage smell
I-
good?
I was gonna-
Smell bad?
My comment is, huh? Yeah, so I'm glad someone's here too. So again, the construction of the Seaboard Airline Railroad provided the opportunity for truck farmers. I don't think you need the article, for truck farmers to quickly move produce to northern capitalized markets and command a higher price. And again, I think for consistency, you can cut the term. We can just start, quote, capital T, truck derives from the French. And you don't need term, you can just say from the French troquet, again, just for meaning to barter. Truck farming, and again, refers, not referred, just being, refers to raising vegetables for market. Yeah, we're all puzzled about the cabbage smell.
I put that in there for fun. It could easily come out. Everybody talks to me about how they would drive down Savannah Highway and smell cabbage.
But was it a good smell, like the pluck mud kind of thing, or people hated the smell?
Bad smell.
So I mean, I think it's valid if we can, put a way to say it.
So then I would put unpleasant smell.
Right.
I like the fertilizer.
And do you want to say, instead of, do you want to say something that residents often complained or travelers often complained of the cabbage's unpleasant smell or something like that, or?
We don't have to get into the
Okay,
unpleasant.
It's kind of an urban legend in my book, but everybody tells it to me. They grew up in the area.
so cabbage grown in the area was particularly memorable for its unpleasant smell.
Yes.
That's going to tickle a lot of people that read that.
No, I think it's great. Like I said, I just wanted to know, was it pleasant? Was it unpleasant? It did kind of leave me hanging. Inquiring minds. So. So the construction of the Seaboard Airline Railroad provided the opportunity for truck farmers to quickly move produce to northern markets and command a higher price. Truck derives from the French troquet, meaning to barter. Truck farming refers to raising vegetables for market. Cabbage grown in the area was particularly memorable for its unpleasant smell. Caption: Seaboard Airline Railroad train bridge, right, crossing the Ashley River.
And I believe we can,
Aerial photograph.
yeah, I think I like the aerial photograph. Also, I think we can annotate the photograph.
Like with an arrow or something.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, because otherwise, yeah, I couldn't quite figure out what we were looking at either.
It was a tough one.
If we're looking for a way to make that a little shorter, one could omit several words from the first sentence and say, the construction of the Seaboard Airline Railroad enabled truck farmers to quickly move, so on and so on.
No, it's a good one.
If we're looking for
Right.
brevity.
Mhm.
No, that's great.
And somebody might say, well, when did they construct? But that's a larger issue.
I'm not sure I could give you a date on that. Railroad
Right.
history is a tough
Yeah,
one.
it took a while to construct, so
We're
we'll
just gonna
leave
put
that
your
out.
phone number.
Yeah.
all of these stuff, email
I
address.
have
For
a
more
Gmail account for this when people send me questions. So
Or, okay, are people happy with that one?
Yes.
Maryville, okay.
Okay, so this troubles me because all of a sudden we've inserted Maryville into this conversation after several signs that talk about the railroad, that talk about truck farming.
It's because of where that one's going to be located.
I'm sure that
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
but we jump right into a family and into an individual without a sign talking about Maryville in general and why it even existed.
Well, the Carl Richardson Park has gone through a very extensive review with your commission about interpretive signs that are going to go on down at the Carl Richardson Park. But we didn't want to ignore when we placed this sign at the trailhead down there that it's in Maryville. So it's going to be very hard to interpret Maryville largely on a sign that's essentially sitting at Higgins Pier. Yeah, I believe that's where that sign is located.
Again, it's hard to cut it down to words, but since we called white before for St. Andrews students, I wonder if we say the African-American town of Maryville, and I think we have to say.
It wasn't all African-American.
But, yeah. But again, and I think we also say that it's no longer, incorporated. We need to say that, and I don't know, so the town of Maryville. Or we can just say the town of Maryville, and I don't know how to do it, now part of Charleston, because we have to say that it no longer extant.
And it seems like there should be a sign that shows where it was located. Much like what we have for the railroad and for the shed and for DuPont Crossing.
That's a complicated one because it's actually split by Highway 61 right now.
So is it on the Ashleyville side of?
This will be at Higgins Pier, right? That's where this is like a trailhead sign. These are the large signs that go at places where people are going to access the different places.
But it's not, sorry for interrupting, but it's not part of the bikeway, is it?
This is on the bikeway.
Okay.
There are trailheads on the bikeway and there are trailheads on the greenway.
Right, okay.
And I believe that the intention is in the future to put more interpretive signs on the bikeway. But these were the ones that were located initially during this particular project. And it's a complex, I agree, this is a complex situation.
Well, I don't know that it does the location justice. It's like I just, if it were me and I were walking by here and I saw this sign, I'm thinking, well, tell me more about Maryville. I mean, you've chosen this individual to talk about. Did this person actually live at this location where this marker is? Is that why she's being chosen to-
No, she was a leader in the community.
She was what?
She was the leader in the community.
But the point is you have to talk about the community to understand the leader. And so, it begs for more conversation about.
I don't disagree with that, but we have one sign with about 60 words on it.
Right, so we need to figure out how to do this.
So why?
So I would say no longer extant. The town of Maryville was chartered in 1886 and incorporated in 1888.
That's redundant. It does mean the same thing, and it was incorporated in December of 1888. So I don't know where the 1886 comes from.
Okay, so
Do you?
So
Yes,
can we at least not put in some sentence as to why it came into existence?
Actually, I deferred to Diane Hamilton, who wrote the book on Maryville, to write this for me to make sure that I always make sure the community is very comfortable with how we interpret their history. So she's actually probably watching on YouTube. She had hoped to be here today. So I had deferred to her to help me write this legend, understanding that we're going to do a lot of interpretation at the Carl Richardson Park and hopefully install more signs in the future. Yes, as was I. Mhm.
you're fine, we'll much more information about Maryville. But again, I agree with you. Have to do as much as you can with.
Well, at the very least, it should say a predominantly African-American community incorporated in 1888, blah, 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 blah.
So I can say no longer extent it primarily, and I was to say black, just for the sake of space, because, and, capitalized, no longer extent the, predominantly black town of Maryville was incorporated in 1888. Mary
And-
Matthews Judd was early influential.
And is it named after her?
No,
That's a coincidence?
coincidence. No, it's not. We have no evidence it was named for any lady. There's no evidence for either. Yes.
Okay.
And Diane lectures quite extensively on both of those Marys.
So we cut out in the tent. Mary Matthews Judd. She, that name, she was postmistress, was instrumental in the formation of the Frederick School and taught there. So at the school, so we are saying work there. First time Dr. Ernest Judd was a great prominent in the field of developmental biology.
And I think you have to qualify, if this is correct, that the Frederick Deming School was for African-American students.
So you want to say black?
Yeah.
For the black only, or segregate? Say that again. But segregate would be white, or segregate would be black. So you want to say the black only?
Was she the first postmistress?
No, Maury was.
That I
In the paper, in the papers, I've seen it, but with regard to the dates while they're chosen, the town of Maryville did have a charter in 1886. It had to be revoked in order for them to be incorporated in 1888. And then the town's charter was revoked in 1936. So those dates are very important to the community.
So I looked at the statutes at large of South Carolina for 1886 and found nothing for Maryville.
Well, it's interesting because Diane has that document
Okay. But
because we've all talked about this.
in the interest of the number of words on the page, I don't know if it's worth putting both of those dates in. I would rather see the inclusion of the 1936 date. Is that what you said?
Yes, yes.
It was incorporated in 1888 and disincorporated, dissolved in 1936.
I think that's also important. Like I said, I deferred to her
Yeah.
when this was
So-
written.
No longer stand. Then you don't even need no longer stand.
Mhm,
Get rid of that.
mhm.
Yep.
So you can say it's
And it wasn't even annexed into the city until like the 90s, I believe. It was late, it was 77, 93. It was late.
So the primary.
It was dissolution of that incorporation or revoked, maybe.
Well, its charter was revoked, but we haven't mentioned the word charter, so I think dissolve still works. That's.
We could say the town of Maryville was chartered in 1886 and unincorporated in 1936.
Sure.
And that way you get the beginning part of it and,
In the end,
Yeah.
you know, it became
Primarily-
a city somewhere
So
in
the
between.
primarily black town of Maryville was chartered in 1886. And unincorporated in 1936.
I like that better because people didn't get up and move. They're still there.
Right.
They just lost their political status.
Mary Matthews Just was an early influential leader. She was postmistress, and we could say and instrumental, and I guess you don't need a comma. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't read, sorry, yeah. As you may tell, my glasses, I do not have my prescription glasses, I'm using a reader, so I can't really see. She was postmistress and instrumental, let's see. No, I'm sorry, she was postmistress, instrumental in the formation of the Black only Frederick Dennis School and taught there. Sorry, you were correct. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
And you don't even need and, just put where she taught.
She actually lived in the building.
But now you need an and after postmistress, right?
Right,
Yes.
right. Now, so she was postmistress and instrumental in the formation of the Black only Frederick Dennis School, where she taught. Her son, Dr. Ernest E. Just, rose to great prominence in the field of developmental biology.
And where did that occur? Not in South Carolina.
Right, right.
No, he was
Woods Hole, Massachusetts.
yes, and
Italy.
University of Chicago and Europe. He was very well known.
Beyond Charleston.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I mean, 'cause he lived all, I mean.
he lived everywhere. You
Right,
can't
he was-
just,
Then
He was in
I would
Italy, he
stick
was in
in the word
Massachusetts.
international. Rose to great international prominence.
Or just rose to international prominence. You
Yeah.
don't need great.
he was also the founder of the Mega Sci-Fi fraternity.
Gotta stand.
Looks
So
good.
I think we got a lot of information in a small amount, and so then, and I'm assuming the caption's gonna be either the Just family or Mary Matthews and her children, or
Could be. I was trying to quickly see how Diane referred to that dissolution in her book, and I can't find it. So I was trying to quickly look, but I don't see it.
but I mean, the state unincorporated.
Yes,
I
they
mean,
did in
their charter,
1936. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
They were revoked. But
Yes.
again, I think this is, you know,
And is this the only African-American community on this whole greenway? No African-American businesses, no.
Well, there were
Anything else?
there were businesses within the community, but like the Wigger store is a little ways from the bikeway. The different businesses are Deming Park and things of this nature.
We talk about the drive-in and it's on Savannah Highway.
Well, we annotated that in the picture to give people a relationship in that photograph. Once again, the hope is to put out more signs along that bikeway to interpret more of the history of those neighborhoods altogether. But the Richardson Park does have a lot of work there.
Then Mr. Chairman, Chase wants to speak here.
Just short, just
sorry, my bad.
just to maybe plug one idea to address your point on the welcome to West Ashley bikeway message. Would there be an opportunity to, at that point, talk about the trail, the bikeway goes through the historic town of Maryville?
Is there space for that? I thought we
I
were
would
limited.
make
We were always
space.
limited for words.
Yeah, that's not.
If there's space for it, then I think we could.
Because then you book in bikeway. It is going through a historic town, and then we have that one historic interpretive panel.
Right. If we have the space for those words,
Is that the very
is it-
first text? Welcome to the West Ashley.
is.
welcome to the bikeway. If there's space on the sign for additional words, that would be a great place to add a sentence.
Oh, gotcha. So that's why that. Right, but this is it. Okay, yeah. Well, And quickly, before we get back to that.
That's the greenway message. You need the bikeway message.
Right, which would be,
It's a little
which would be
different.
the very first thing that we did.
No, no,
That was. the
that's
second one
later.
we did.
That's later.
Mhm.
So we've got two different welcome ones, okay?
Yes.
So it's that text.
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about, adding the word town in there. But now you're saying to identify it as, just identify Maryville.
And I think you said historic town. Yeah, I think that works. If there's a room.
Airline would be really good. You want to say, so did the railroad, it did not actually serve Maryville? Do you think it actually did serve Maryville?
Most of what that railroad served was produce, cargo. The only time it served passengers, to my understanding, was when the Fort Fetterman took out the Ashley Bridge.
So, okay, so I was thinking what once served the historic town of Maryville and linked the truck, but it didn't really actually serve Maryville.
But the second part of that, where it talks about what it is now, a linear parkway that connects neighborhoods, schools, businesses, and the historic town of Maryville by foot and bicycle. Philip's reading my mind. And that's a few extra words, but we could trim a few words from the very first. And pardon me for proposing something that involves another slide, but listen to this, Mr. Chairman. Once linking the truck farmers of St. Andrews Parish, so on and so forth, and then take out the clause beginning in 1916. The West Ashley Green, yeah, thank you, Philip. Seaboard Airline Railroad, comma, the West Ashley Greenway is now a linear park, is now a City of Charleston park connecting neighborhoods.
Bikeway.
Bikeway, right.
Isn't airline 2 words?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So that trims a few words.
And I think you should say the former town of Maryville, because it's no longer.
You say is now linear park for the city of Charleston, connecting the former town neighborhoods, once farmlands, the former town of Maryville, and schools and businesses. So I would put Maryville further up in the sentence.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
So once linking truck. So you can go by foot on the bikeway.
Yes, you can. They just called it a bikeway originally.
Okay, that's what I thought, just making sure.
That
Once
was,
linking truck farmers of St. Andrews Parish to northern markets by the Seaboard Airline Railroad, the West the West Ashley Bikeway is now a linear park for the city of Charleston, connecting neighborhoods, once farmlands, the former town of Maryville, schools and businesses by foot and bicycle. Enjoy the history and natural beauty of this treasured community asset. Angela has to go.
And Mr. Chairman, the date 1916 used to be in that sentence. And I think that answers a question on another slide with that aerial photograph. We were wondering, well, when did the Seaboard Airline Railroad begin? And if we put the date 1916 in that aerial photograph, I think that would help the context of that other slide a lot.
But you're basically saying, so the image is not 1916, but the Seaboard Airline begun in 1916.
So going back to that aerial photograph slide, it says the construction of the Seaboard Airline Railroad provided the opportunity, blah, blah, blah. But if we could put in the 1916 date, I think it would help the context of that
Photograph.
photograph. We're not saying it's a 1916 photograph.
It's a 1950 as best we have been able to date that one.
If you can take us back there.
So
You want to say the circa 1916 construction of the Seaboard Airline Railroad?
I like that. I do like that.
So the circa 1916. CA period.
I think you've got room to spell it out.
Oh, you've got.
I think there's
circa
room to spell.
1916 construction of the Seaboard Airline Railroad enable truck farmers to quickly move. Yep. Okay.
So
Harlan, are we going to vote this?
Are we okay on that? So,
Yeah, we wouldn't have a quorum
Yeah,
with
so-
Peg leaving.
okay. So
So-
Peg's just answering her phone. So shall we, anyway, we'll get ready to vote that. I will say, Philip, going back to the very first one, to be consistent, we objected to the word nature and changed that to natural beauty. And the very first one, we approved the word nature, so we move it back to natural beauty. Okay, does that, okay, great. So we will wait for,
And while we're waiting, it's unfortunate you didn't get to see the 3 natural beauty signs, pictures that go with this, because they are really spectacular. Local.
so we will, so because people have to leave, we now, is there a motion to accept all these texts as amended? Okay, any other discussion? Can we vote, raise your hand, say aye?
I,
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank
So-
you very
And
much.
thank you, Donna, and thank you everyone else for your patience.
Thank you
and
so
for
much.
Being there and your historical acumen and your patience and your patience and your patience.
No, I appreciate all the
Yeah.
help.
Oh, and thank city staff again too. Y'all are always above and beyond in making this easy. I mean, which does better in the sun? Obviously, they're gonna get bleached out, you know. Thanks for